And welcome back again to the Matt Stat Show along with Kevin Hazard and Glenn Gormley. I'm Jason Bryant, and as always, we like to look in to the numbers in the sport of wrestling today, focusing on college wrestling. And one of the big topics has been how many matches we're wrestling, because right now, as the first coaches rankings came out, there were a number of wrestlers from Penn State that weren't included because they didn't hit the matches required to get a threshold for the coaches rank. And that made us think, well, wait a minute, how many matches are these guys wrestling? And Glenn looked at the numbers. I dug them up, and the Poobah's got some interesting insights on this as well. So today, Glenn, we're talking about matches wrestled as it relates to going into the NCAA championships. We got a lot of numbers from the champions over the years, and I guess give us an idea on your thoughts on where the genesis of this episode came from.
Okay, the genesis on this episode actually came from some of the guys that I coached at William Mary, texted me or called me up, emailed me, and said it doesn't seem like anybody's wrestling any matches right now compared to back in the good old days when we were kids, right? So that was the genesis of this.
All right, today we're going with Alan Jackson as your theme. As Glenn's got, you've had the Ramones, you've had, I don't know, where does your brain go when you come up with this stuff? Because, I don't know, you've had, who do we have? We had Gretchen Wilson, we've had, or Meredith Brooks. I don't even know who you've had. You've spanned the musical genres. I was expecting to see like Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs on here, like after the Grammys performance last night, which was, well, as we record this on Monday, which was freaking spectacular. But yeah, where do you get this Alan Jackson stuff from, man?
Well, I'm a country music guy, so I like Alan Jackson. And if you want to know what's going on inside my head, you got to talk to Dr. Mark McLaughlin, my neurosurgeon buddy. He might be the only one that knows.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just be content with knowing what I have here between the two brains on my screen and the one in my own head. That's too much to keep up with as it is. So too much of a good thing is a good thing, according to Alan Jackson. So, Glenn, take her away on Matt Stats today.
Okay. So as Jason just did a great introduction there, we're trying to find out how many matches are wrestled now, how many matches were wrestled in the past. What's the reason for this? What's going on with this? And like Alan Jackson did say, too much of a good thing is a good thing, but maybe in this case, less is more. Okay. So as always in this thing, I feel like a number. Okay. That's kind of like our motto here with the famous Bob Seger song, because we're all about numbers. And then probably the most famous number of all time, 8675309, Jenny. Okay.
I still think we need to get Danny's Glass in Virginia as a sponsor for this show, because it's right up the road from your friends at William and Mary. I'm figuring, like, you know what? If you're in the Virginia Peninsula area, this be a great plug for them, because that's the number that's in service for Danny's Glass down in Yorktown. So hint, nudge, nudge, Glenn.
I will talk to. Let me write that down. Danny's Glass.
Well, you don't need to write down the number. You know it.
No,
it's a 757. Of course, when you were living in the area, and Kevin, there was an 804. It was just one of them.
Yeah.
So
so
we're
that's
757 down there now.
Yeah, but I do know of Danny's Glass from living there. Okay. As always, I like to start the show with the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect any policies or opinions of the NWCA, nor do every opinion Gormley says that agreed to or disagreed to necessarily by Kevin or Jason. Okay. Match Stats is based on number stats and analyzing them. Okay. It starts with facts, not opinions. Okay. Just so everybody knows here, we do have something to back up what we're saying here. Okay. The reason why we have some balance on this show, why we do have some opinions, mainly from Kevin and Jason on this, based on the stats. All right. Now, one thing we like to do on the first slide with numbers, every episode now, we started doing this a few months ago. As of 2/4/24, which was yesterday, there are 502 men and women's wrestling teams in the NCAA and NAIA. That's great to see, guys. We're all about helping the growth of this sport and what it's doing. Okay, now, I got a little bit of funny thing here on the next slide that Jason will show here, is if anybody has seen the movie The Shining, Gorms were stuck on the mountain for 7 days. Couldn't get out via car, had to run down the hill to make sure I stayed working out. So all work and no play makes Gorms a dull boy. It was like I was Jack from The Shining.
I don't know. We're talking about getting inside of your head. Leave that one out next time. I don't think it's like, yeah, you
we're
got
going to
cabin
have
fever.
Mark
Yeah.
explain that to us.
Yeah. Mark McLaughlin, Dr. McLaughlin, explain cabin fever and its impact on wrestling statisticians. That should be his next book. It would be quite short. No.
So we're talking about The Shining and we're talking about The Good Doctor. What's the topic of this show?
Okay. This episode deals with how many matches the men's NCAA Division I of wrestling per year. What are the trends? Are the number of matches correlated with the seeds or the weights? And we will compare 2023, the most recent year, to past years.
All right, let's start with the number of matches wrestled.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the number of matches wrestling from 2023 to 2013, before the start of the men's D1, is down 2.5%. And it's pretty much down throughout the thing. A couple weight classes, there are some weights up. Okay. There is no correlation between the weight class and number of matches. It's just a happenstance thing. Okay. In 2023, the weight with the most bouts was 174. The one with the least was 157. In 2013, 133 had the most, 125 had the least. So you can see where there's no correlation. It's just all happenstance. Okay. 8 of the top 12 seeds have seen a decrease in the number of bouts before the NCAAs from 2013 to 2023. Okay. So it's definitely something that's going on here. This is a moderate negative correlation between the seed and the ranked number of teams. Okay? In other words, the higher the seed, the less matches you're getting, basically. And this happens all the way from seed 1. We did it all the way to seed 33. But one must consider that in 2013, we did not seed all 33 people. Now we do. Okay? So what we did to do this is seeds 1 through 12 have gone down 3.7%, and 13 through 33 is only going down 1.7%. So you can see here where the higher seeds are getting less matches before the NCAA than the lower ones.
Okay, we are Penn State. It's the champion in 2013 and in 23. Now, are they different than the rest of the schools compared to other schools in the number of matches?
Okay, yes, Kevin, that's a great question. In 2023, Penn State wrestled 16.67% matches below the average NCAA qualifier. In 2013, it was down, but only 8.33%. Okay, so Penn State's knowing something here, maybe less is more. Okay, how did Penn State perform compared to their seeds? Okay, in 2013, whoever seeded this did an unbelievable job, and Penn State just followed along and won the tournament and did well. In 2023, Penn State actually overperformed from their seeds, which is hard to imagine since they tend to be seeded really high because they tend to win all the time. Okay, so not only are they really good wrestlers, but they come through in the most important weekend. Okay, now one thing we understand is from earlier in the show, the higher the seed, the less matches you get. Is that the reason Penn State has such few matches? Well, if we control for the seed and control for Penn State still had 5.3 fewer bouts than the same seeded wrestlers in 2013.
Now, Glenn, I'm going to jump in here. When you say control, just for the non-statistical oriented, what are you doing to come up with these numbers? Where are you putting Penn State? Where are you putting the seeds? So those of us that don't have that statistical analytical brain, courtesy of you and Dr. McLaughlin, where are we doing? What are we doing with the numbers? What do you mean by control in this situation for those who are unfamiliar?
Okay, thank you for that. As if you see on this slide, the first column, of course, is Penn State seeds. The second column is average matches without Penn State. That's what I mean by controlling for Penn State. We're taking Penn State out of there. Okay.
Gotcha.
Because there's a finite amount of people. Then the next slide, the column in the middle, average number of matches with Penn State. So what controlling for Penn State means is we're comparing if somebody's seated number one, like Sterucci was last year and will be this year, et cetera. Okay, we're taking him out, but we're comparing to how many matches the number one seeds wrestled. So even with this, in 2013, they wrestled 5% less, and in 2023, they wrestled 12% less matches than the comparable seeds. Okay, so something is going on here where somehow Cael Sanderson must be believing less is more. Next slide.
Okay, so you're saying as a coach, the Sanderson team wrestles less matches than the average team. How about when he was winning his 4 NCAA titles? Did he wrestle less matches than the other NCAA champions?
That's a great question, Kevin. And Cael actually wrestled more than the other NCAA champs. Okay.
Also, what's interesting too on this, Glenn, is Cael was wrestling in an era where matches against junior college wrestlers did not count. Now, we are in a situation where the matches today, they count, but for qualification purposes, you're only seeing a D1 record. So like next edition, we'll be talking about my preview guide. Those are only going to be the matches that are hit for qualifying procedures. So it gets in the gray area of what number is and what number isn't. But Cael, I believe, would have had anywhere from 9 to 11 more wins. I have it somewhere. If the matches that counted today counted then. So he had a lot of junior college matches, which at the time did not count as an official bout on your official record. So he'd have been like 169-0 or something like that had those matches counted in that era. So it's funny because there's even more that could have counted. But again, rules being what they are, they change by generations. And now we're talking about things 20 years ago. And it's like, oh, well, guess what? The win over Iowa Central didn't matter back then. It wouldn't matter today for qualification, but it would still go on your overall win-loss record. So, yeah, fun things about wrestling and our numbers. Some things count, some things don't. I'm just saying that in Alan Jackson voice.
Yeah, thank you. Sounded real good. You need the cowboy hat.
It really didn't.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that information, Jason. And even what Jason says is they didn't count against JUCOs, but nor did the other 9 champions each of his 4 title years count. So he's still wrestling almost 10% more as an athlete, but yet as a coach, he doesn't do that.
Okay. Now, there's the major rivalry in D1 wrestling is Penn State and Iowa. It seems to be that way every year. Does Iowa wrestle more or less matches than Penn State? And how does Iowa compare with all the other D1 schools?
Thank you for asking that question, Kevin. I have, as I'm sure some of you guys have heard too in the suite and stuff like that, and Scuttlebutt, that Penn State wrestles little matches, Iowa wrestles too many and they burn out. That's not, in fact, the case. Since 2017, Iowa's actually wrestled slightly less matches than Penn State going into the NCAA tournament. They're very close, but Iowa's slightly less.
I found that surprising. All right. That being said, we know the trend for the number of matches all of the NCAA champions wrestle in a season last 50 years.
Okay. Thank you for this. Jason provided us with a number of matches the champions have wrestled, and that, of course, counts after they won the title. Okay. There's 5 years intervals on the screen there. Okay. And easily the lowest one is 2017 to 2023. There was no tournament in 2020, and we did not count 2021 because of COVID situations there. Now, from 2012 to 2016, they wrestled the champions 33.6. Last year, it was down to 24.2 for the champions. So something's going on here where people are wrestling less. All right. One of the things that I'd like your guys' input on this here, there's some specific examples. In 2015, Kyle Snyder wrestled 34 bouts when he was NCAA runner-up. The following year, he wrestled 11 bouts, the year he won a gold medal. In 2019, only Spencer Lee had less than 29 matches. From 21 to 23, only Mason Paris had more than 28 bouts.
Well, I know that I remember it was probably somewhere around a decade ago, Rob Cole at Cornell said, we don't need to wrestle all these matches. And maybe other coaches were thinking it, but he was the first one I heard say it. We don't need to, for our season, we don't need to have 50 matches or 40 matches. And so I know he started trending his team down.
Yeah, and we can look at Snyder and Lee as also somewhat exceptions, because the thought was that Snyder was going to redshirt and then, have an international schedule and an abbreviated college schedule. So that's kind of an outlier situation. But then he did it the next 3 years. So his career win total is way low, considering. I wonder what his numbers would be if you added up all the matches he actually wrestled that year, international and domestic, because that would be interesting. And then taking the miles flown to Krasnoyarsk, for things like the Urigan and such. Spencer Lee, we know he had injury issues his entire college career, but then that year, that 19 year, Iowa shot up they sold out the entire season with season tickets, and a lot of that was Spencer Lee being the draw. So part of it, he's going out there, he's showing up, people are showing up to watch him. So, could he have been on a pitch count before then? That's another outlier, because the next year he was fully wrestling. He didn't wrestle a whole lot last year, comparatively speaking. So, and then Mason Paris, heavyweights. I'm sitting there going, that's one of those things where you say there's no correlation between matches number wrestled and the weight class. Then you see a heavyweight with the most bouts, whereas in comparison, Gable Steveson did the Kyle Snyder type of thing with the abbreviated schedule. Then again, we're coming off COVID, so everybody was on an abbreviated schedule in 21. So. There's a couple outliers to consider, but I go back and look at John Smith, for example. I remember looking him up when I was doing a lot of this win streak data, and he lost his first match, I think, his junior year, and then won 41 in a row as a junior, and then didn't lose as a senior. And I'm like, you're not seeing the elite guys wrestle that many times anymore. You're also not seeing them wrestle in opens, and also some of that too is now we've got the rules changing where starters aren't going to go to opens and catch two matches and forfeit out, because that forfeit's now going to count as at least one countable loss. So I think that's going to impact the number of matches moving forward. But I guess I'm part of like the wrestling fan is a little bit selfish. I like to see records. I like to see win totals. I'm tracking win streaks right now. We know Starachi's got over 60 on the Division I side. Robbie Preeson at North Central is approaching 80 on the Division III side of things, which is the current leader among NCAA schools. Last year we had Batterdine with Doane, had 100 wins in a row and then lose in the semifinals of the NAIA. So I love streaks. I love matches wrestled. But I'm also thinking, the coach's mindset is changing, like Rob Cole had points out to what Kevin was saying. It's like, well, the athletes have better training regimens now. They have more analytics. They have basically more science at their disposal. They know what their VO2 maxes are. They know it's not just cut weight, grind down, and then we're looking at some of your contemporaries in this case. They're walking wounded as a result of it after their wrestling careers are over. So I'm curious what this is going to look like 20 years from now, Glenn. When maybe we can get again the good doctor on the show to look at where are our wrestlers who are wrestling less matches today with their bodies 20 years from now. That's another byproduct of something we're looking at competitive situations now. But what about life? I don't want to say life expectancy, but like for physical wellness down the line, less matches impacting how they're feeling after their careers are older and they're down on the floor with their kids or grandkids, as it may be. So I'm curious on how that's going to be. But I like more matches. But again, you also see that D1 teams at the higher levels, your Big Tens, they're not wrestling quad matches against each other. If there's a quad, it's usually with some mid-tier or lower-tier teams and then maybe one kind of tough match. Or with scheduling, they don't want to wrestle anybody tough before they get into the meat of the Big Ten schedule. So we're seeing everybody line up to wrestle the Sacred Hearts of the world, whereas nobody wants the non-conference duel with Oklahoma State. So we're seeing a little bit of it. It's gaming the matches. It's also like, well, match counts. Well, if I'm going to get matches, I'm going to get them to where I'm not beaten up, because when you get two bulls hitting each other, the recovery is going to be a little different. I'm spitballing that, but I'm thinking that's the mentality with, you hit so many studs back to back to back, it's going to wear and tear your body. So everybody's hurt come March. And I think part of it that we learned from COVID is, well, you had 12 matches during the year, and the quality of wrestling was better at that COVID championships, and then the next year with the limited one. So maybe they're looking at it from an analytical standpoint, be like, well, our guys wrestled better with less matches. They were less banged up and bruised. So that's where some people think maybe Kale's onto something, but then we're not seeing our stars as much either. So it's like, well, the opportunities to see these guys less and less. And it's like, you want the better product over here? Do you want the healthier wrestler, or do you want to see them more? I mean, it's a real big catch 33. I'm not saying 22 because there's 3 to worry about. Is catch 33 a thing? I don't know. But that's just kind of where my head goes in several directions when it comes to this.
I did have one more thought on it, too. I mean, we talked about Penn State and Iowa having less matches. And I wonder, I had no backup to this, just, spitballing. They have more guys in the room that could be starting on any other, most other teams in the country. And it proved out that we've got backups that are 12-0 and 14-0. And I think maybe they have a tendency to rest their guys because they need to get those other guys in there. So
or perhaps they're getting the competition in the room compared to, all right, a dual meet against a mid-major. Where are they going to get pushed more? In is the weigh-in more or less a simulation than the actual battles in the room? That could be something to consider.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn, moving forward,
guys. Yeah, moving forward here. The next chart shows you how many matches the champions, average number of matches for the NCAA champions each year. We did in 10-year increments going back, 10-year things going back. But back in the old days, we didn't really know how many matches some of the champions had. We don't have the research for that. In 2022, the average number of matches was 21.8. That is the lowest number, not counting 2021, since 1965. Okay, so something's going on here. The highest number in any single year was 1985 with 44.6. Okay, guys, that's easy math to do. We were seeing twice the amount of matches in 85 as we're seeing now. All right.
And every one of those wrestlers has had double knee replacements in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That's not statistical. I made that up.
Yeah, exactly. And I always have to say on the show, remember, correlation does not prove causation. Some of the things that were correlated here. However, the numbers decreasing. Something's going on here. And in case you guys missed episode 14, if not now, when? If not you, who? Okay, you learn here, and you see it on the slide, that the NCAA champions might be wrestling a little bit less matches because they tend to win the tournaments in the regular season, where people that come in third and fourth and all wrestle more matches than the champions or the runner-ups. Okay.
All right, so we know that the number of wrestlers have decreased, but is this comparative to other sports? In other words, men's D1 wrestling, does it compare with men's basketball, football, and baseball? How do those numbers work?
All right. Kevin, thank you for that. We went back 50 years for basketball, football, and baseball, okay, and wrestling, of course. And we did the champions, okay, like either the school champion or the 10 individual in wrestling. Wrestlers were down 25%. Basketball and football were both up over 25%, and baseball was down 4%. Okay, so I did a little bit of research into this. In 1973, UCLA played 30 games. They'd have to play 40 now to win. Okay, North Carolina State played 32 the following year when they won. And back in 74, only 2 conferences had a basketball tournament, the ACC and the Southern. And then in recent years, Kansas and UConn won the men's title. They played in 40 and 39. Okay, so it's down 27%. Okay. Now, it's interesting what has changed in these money-making things, football and basketball. Basketball back then, you only had to win 4 games in the NCAA tournament to win. Now you have to win 6. Okay. UCLA and North Carolina State, the respective champions those years, actually hosted the first 2 rounds of the playoffs in their school at their gym. Okay. We talked about wear and tear. In 1974, North Carolina State, their total miles traveled was a little bit less than 7,300. The Vols traveled almost 9,000 miles for one tournament in Oahu this year. Okay. And just to get a plug in, the Vols traveled the 2.5 hours up the road and won at Rupp Arena in Kentucky yesterday. So that was Saturday, excuse me. That was good. Back in the days when me and Kevin were young and not getting into trouble yet, we might have been too young, regionals were truly regional. UCLA won 10 titles in 12 years. They happened to beat 10 different schools in the finals. All 10 schools were east of the Mississippi River. Now it's you just go anywhere and play all the time. It's gotten out of hand. And football is adding playoffs. You talk about a sport where people are going to get beat up. I mean, those guys in football are going to need to call Bobby Powell for some hip replacements here in their old days. Kevin, tell me what you think about this show. Wrap it up for the viewers.
All right, Kev notes. Interestingly, average number of matches for NCAA qualifiers before the NCAAs is down 2.5% just in the last 10 years, and the higher seeds saw even more of a decrease. Number 2, you compare 2013 to 2023, the top 12 seeds at the men's D1 championships have wrestled 3.7 less matches, and the unseeded have also dropped less, but it's still significant at 1.7%. 3, and coaches listen to this, Penn State, the perennial number 1, 16.67 less matches than the average qualifier in 23, 8.33 less in 2013. So it's, when controlling for the seeds, it's 12.3 and 5.3, and it's trending down. They're trending much less. The Penn State coach, Cale Sanderson, interestingly, he averaged almost 10% more matches than the other 9 NCAA champions in his title run. So his thinking, well, actually he was wrestling for, Hall of Fame coach Bobby Douglas, but at that point they wrestled a lot more matches, and he wrestled more than everybody. And 5, 2017 to 23, Iowa qualifiers for the NCAAs have wrestled slightly less fewer matches than Penn State, but it's not really a significant difference, 24.67 and 24.85. Number 6, looking back 50 years in 5-year intervals, the number of matches the NCAA D1 champions wrestled peaked in the late 80s and has been decreasing, and it's decreasing more than it went up. So it's a really significant difference. 7, the max for NCAA champs matches was in 1985, 44.5 matches, 44.6 matches per champion. And since the minimum since 1965 was 2022, and that was 21.8, less than half. 8, while NCAA champion wrestlers have seen 25% less matches since the 70s, money sports, football and basketball have increased their number of games by about 25%. Little thought going into that, I'm sure that's partly due to revenue, at least partly. In 1973, UCLA won the NCAA 1 men's basketball title, playing 30 games. 2023, UConn won while playing 39 games. That's a significant difference. That's basically 30% more, 33%. 10, making basketball even more difficult is how many more miles the teams travel in 2023 compared to the 70s.
Thank you, Kevin. Jason, give us some of your input on this.
Yeah, so I want to touch back on, again, I think we're all preaching to the choir here, those of us that are wrestling people. We look at, again, we don't drive the bus. The revenue sports, and as much as I hate to say it, they drive the bus. We just fight over the scraps with all the other Olympic sports and I hate the term non-revenue sports because every sport can be a revenue sport if the department at its respective school invests not just in the financial part of it, but in the people part of it, because this might be a little bleeding heart type of, perfect world type of scenario. But if you want to support your wrestling program, or you want to support your hockey program, or you want to support your softball program, there's nothing holding you back but your own self-imposed limitations. So you can be a revenue sport if you choose to make it a revenue sport. You just need to spend the time and effort to do it. And the thing is, the fact that the masses like basketball and football because they don't have to think about it makes those easy things to say, oh, they're revenue sports. When you're spending $40 million to make 39, or if you're spending $41 million and only bringing in 35, oh yeah, we're making $35 million of revenue. Yeah, you're spending all that time and effort for those other sports. Now, getting off that soapbox and talking about the topic here as it relates to it, realignment, okay? We've added more games, more TV games. We've added SoCon Saturday. I think it's absolutely stupidly abhorrent that the SEC, the biggest well-funded college football programs in this country, have to play FCS teams like Wofford and the Citadel midway through November to get that extra home game to make that extra $500,000 to support the weight room versus, I don't know, maybe you could add a sport or two, or you could add men's and women's wrestling. Just, these schools don't like to add anything because, they can afford it. Yeah, they absolutely can afford it now. They just don't want to spend the money on anything they don't have to, because without the actual effort, they're not going to make any money on it because they don't care enough about it. They care about dollar signs. They don't care about people. So that is my issue with where this is where we're going. Glenn, you're guilty of it too with your Vols. You're pulling up basketball and football stuff. You love the Vols. No matter, those are you're a wrestling guy, but you love, football and basketball. Everybody loves football and basketball. Wrestling people, we tend to hate those sports because we don't get anything out of it. So, I don't know. Another soapbox. You've given me one topic and 3 soapboxes. I don't know where I'm at. I just know that I don't like where college sports is going, and we're just along for the ride. It's hard for us to be proactive when we don't know where the bus is going to begin with. So, that's my mic drop for this episode for the time being.
Okay, Jason, I am guilty as charged on what you just accused me of. There's no question. It's ironic too, because I'm not in favor of the football playoffs and these expanded conferences and more games, but you're damn right. I'm going to go to those more games if they're here on Saturday. I'll go. I'm against it.
I love college football, but I hate college football. Like, that's the thing. Like, I will watch college football uninterrupted on Saturdays throughout the fall. I don't watch it as much as I used to because of that school in Norfolk, but at the same point, like, I'm still watching it. I love the game I love watching college football. It's exciting. It's kind of hard to speak our truth to a sporting culture that doesn't want to see anything other than their sports make all the money and nobody cares about our sports. So that's the hardest thing I deal with when I say I love college football and I hate college football, because college football, yes, it can prop up an athletic department when you're successful, but if you're losing and you're hemorrhaging money, you're causing every other team around you to suffer because you're throwing more resources at that money pit to try to bring yourself up and break even when you're not going to do it. I'm preaching to the choir here because,
I'm against the expansion of the college football playoff, but I'll be the first one in line if we host one of the games. So anyway, guys,
but who won the division? Who was the Division I national football champion this year?
Michigan, that school up north.
South Dakota State.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
They have the NCAA trophy. They are the NCAA Division I football national champions. Hey, okay, Michigan did win
Michigan beating Bama.
the college football playoff, but that doesn't have an NCAA logo on it.
I thought it was a shot at Michigan beating one of my SEC schools. Okay, guys, now, thank you for all this. The next show, okay, which will come out, of course, the third Wednesday of March, is a preview to the 2024 NCAA Division I Men's Championships. Okay. This is basically a hour-long preview, teaser, whatever you want to call it, to Jason Bryant's The Guide. Okay, you can pre-order. Go to WrestlingPreviewGuide.com and type in the discount code MattStats, and you save $10. This is the best thing written every year. Okay, I'm a numbers guy. I'm not a big reader, but I have been telling all the guys at William Mary Sweets for years. I send out an email and tell them if they don't order this, they're idiots. So that's going to be the next show, and you guys get a free teaser on Jason Bryant's thing, and can't wait to see everybody at Nationals. I hope you enjoyed this show. And from my fellow hosts, Kevin Hazard and Jason Bryant, this is Glenn Gormley signing off.